That set himself on fire in Tunisia, the president said that was Rosa Parks. Let me show you how we got to Paris. He sets himself on fire. That trips into the Arab Spring. The Arab Spring goes into the collapse of Libya. Because of the collapse of Libya, we have an immigration problem in Spain, Italy, and France. The migrants just start going over. We realize that because all these things are collapsing, we know that Syria is on the verge of collapse. We start running guns out of Benghazi into Syria. Because we run guns, we create ISIS. All of these decisions that the president has championed, that causes the refugee crisis in Germany and France and all over Europe, and that's how we get to Paris. This guy's wrong every single time.
That was Glenn Beck on the Kelly File just a few days ago, detailing what he says are a series of mistakes by this administration leading up to Friday's terror attacks in Paris. Tonight, the former head of U.S. military intelligence is adding to that, saying that his agency specifically warned the White House of the growing ISIS threat, and those warnings were ignored. In August 2012, the Defense Intelligence Agency, or DIA, this is a sister to the CIA, reported that growing chaos in Syria was giving ISIS's predecessors the space to flourish and potentially establish an Islamic State. The DIA warned of the, quote, grave danger this posed. The man who ran that agency under President Obama, Lieutenant General Michael Flynn, now reveals publicly that, quote, this particular report, this was one of those nobody wanted to see. It was disregarded by the White House. Frankly, at the White House, it didn't meet the narrative. Mark Thiessen is a Fox News contributor and former chief speechwriter for President George W. Bush. Richard Socarides is a former White House senior advisor to President Bill Clinton. Thank you both for being here. Mark,
Thanks, Megan.
It didn't meet the narrative. What narrative?
No, that's exactly right. This is the report right here, August 2012. It was delivered to President Obama. What was happening in August 2012? We were 3 months away from a presidential election in which Barack Obama was campaigning on the promise that he had, one, ended the war in Iraq, and two, put al-Qaeda on the path to defeat. Those are exact quotes from the president. This DIA report informed the president that, one, the war in Iraq was not over, that it could flare up very quickly, and two, al-Qaeda in Iraq was not on the path to defeat, it was rising. President Obama did not want to hear that, so he put his head in the sand, he dismissed them as the JV team, and the results have been disastrous. Everything that the DIA said in that report and more has come to pass.
Richard?
Well, Megan, first of all, you know, these are not new allegations from Mr. Flynn. He's not making this in regard to Paris. I think, you know, he's been saying this for a while. And I think that the assertions in that memo are so general that they're not really actionable. So, I mean, I think it's the rough equivalent of saying, you know, things could get worse. Well, things could get worse, and I think he made an educated guess.
So you don't think the fact that this warning came in August of 2012, when he was facing a re-election in November of 2012, that had anything to do with it?
No, because I think the warning, there's nothing you can do with the warning. It's the rough equivalent of saying things could get worse,
Mark,
and in fact they did get worse.
But
he didn't
that was
ignore
not
anything.
the only warning. It wasn't just this warning by General Flynn.
But what I don't understand what Mr.
not.
Flynn is saying he ignored. What is it that Mr. Flynn is alleging that was ignored?
Go ahead, Mark.
I will tell you what Mr. Flynn is alleging was ignored, and it was not just this DIA report. If it was just one intelligence report, then that would be one thing. In 2012, that same year, President Obama's entire national security team, General Petraeus, Secretary Panetta, Marty Dempsey, and even Hillary Clinton came to him and warned him about the threat in Syria and urged him to fund the Free Syrian Army, to have a robust training and equip. And Congressman Ed Royce last summer revealed that it was not just this national security team, the Iraqi government was warning him. Since August of 2013, the Iraqi government was begging Barack Obama to carry out bombing missions against these camps.
So this becomes not so much a discussion of this memo, of course, but whether or not President Obama has done all the right things to combat this threat.
Whether he underestimated the threat. Whether he underestimated the threat, Richard.
I mean, listen, in the face of what's happened last week, you can say we all underestimated the threat. I mean, I think that we obviously have to do more. And
you think General Flynn underestimated it?
But I don't. What we don't know is what has been prevented? You know, I think this is a very complicated issue, and I don't. And I think, Megyn,
we're talking about a president who called them JV, Richard.
Megyn.
Listen, I give you John Brennan, head of the CIA, and what the status he puts on ISIS. This is what he says President Obama inherited when it came to ISIS. Listen.
It was, pretty much decimated when U.S. forces were there in Iraq. It had maybe 700 or so adherents left, and then it grew quite a bit in the last several years.
It certainly did.
Well, and certainly now we see that it's a very powerful enemy. So you don't know, but what we don't know is what has been prevented. We don't know what has been successful. We know that what we're dealing with now is very scary, and that people have a right to be scared, and we need to be stronger. We need to take more.
But they also have a right to some accountability, Mark.
Well, listen.
We do know what's been successful, Richard. We do know. We know that ISIS has been successful in taking over territory the size of Great Britain.
Well, but what you do not know.
Hold on. Let me finish. Hold on, let me finish.
Let him finish. Go ahead,
listen,
okay,
Mark,
they've taken over territory the size of Great Britain. They are bringing in, according to the RAND institution, they're bringing in $1.2 billion. They are the largest, wealthiest, most powerful terror network in history. And it happened on Barack Obama's watch.
Megyn,
and he was warned by the DIA, by the CIA, by the Joint Chiefs of Staff, by his own Secretary of Defense.
All right, go ahead, Richard. Last word.
So my point is that we don't know what has been prevented. We don't know.
Well, you already said that. Make a new point if you want the floor.
The point is that this is a very complicated enemy, and we will just have to be stronger and do more.
Richard, you fought too hard to get the airtime back to say just that general nonsense.
What do you mean? What do you mean general nonsense?
It's like I want specifics.
I don't know.
Rebut the argument. Let's
what
go.
your point is.
We have
do we have to do more?
Yes, we have.
Yes, we have
What
to
is
do
the
more.
counter? We don't know what they prevented. People are scared. They're looking for accountability. President Obama wants us to think this is all the Republicans' fault.
I'll tell you
what
we
didn't prevent. Look at the history. Glenn Beck walked you through some of it. He's not all wrong.
That is not the history. To say that President Obama has gotten this all wrong, I think he's done a lot right. He has prevented. He has clearly prevented the kind of attack we saw on 9/11, and we'll have to do more.
I still love you. I gotta go.
Attack.
Richard, great to see you.
Thank you,
Mark.
Megyn.
Thanks.
Also tonight, we have now gone through surveillance video of the terrorist attack on a Paris restaurant last Friday. We will not only show you what we discovered, but we'll speak with two combat veterans about what some folks did that may have saved their lives. Plus, as presidential candidate Donald Trump suggests some U.S. mosques should